Hello, I should probably switch the sound on for the game, but I'm going to build a new deck for Officer Tetsu Trudge to use, and I'm going to do it with the first deck of his, because I figured this way we'll be able to. I think this will be a good idea because I want to show you something about how to build a deck for those of you that don't know how in this game. Now, when you build a deck of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, you do have to pick a theme for the deck of cards. And a theme being like monster type you want to base your deck around. Like if you want to base it around spellcaster type, warrior type, dragon type, machine type, and so on. But you don't necessarily have to base it around one or two monster types. You can also base it around something called an archetype. Now, an archetype, for those of you that don't know, is where you have well, that's basically where you pretty much base the deck of cards around monsters with one or two certain words in a card name. For example, Agent Gare. If I were to go for an Agent Gare deck, this is the good thing is this deck is not only going to be an Agent Gare deck, it's also going to be a machine type, because every Agent Gare monster in this game are in fact machine types. And now I could go for an Agent Gare type, or I could go for a machine type, and if I do choose, now if the theme of the deck I choose is machine type, I could go for Agent Gare, like I picked here. But I don't necessarily have to go for that. I can also go for a Cyber Dark deck. This is where I go for monsters like Cyber Dark Edge, Cyber Dark Keel, Cyber Dark Cannon, Cyber Dark Claw, Cyber Dark Horn, and as well as Cyber Dark Dragon. Now you might remember the Cyber Dark machine deck because from like all the other times I dueled against people who used this particular machine deck. And yeah, I think some of you might remember how that went when in some of the online duels I've done with other characters. However, for this deck that I'm going to build for Trudge is, in fact, well, it's actually going to be didn't mean to get that. It's going to be an Agent Gare deck. Agent Gare deck is like one of that's like one of 4 or 5 archetypes I like using for a deck because to me it's kind of an effective deck to use. Now you do need to have monsters with Agent Gare in their name, because that makes sense, because it's an Agent Gare deck, obviously. Now I don't have either red, yellow or green gadgets, so But I'm still going to add Agent Gear Gadgetron Dragon. Because it's, well, Carmel, I mean, I'm still going to add him because he would help out. And I'm also going to add Agent Gear Gadgetron Dragon. But I'm also going to add 2 copies of Agent Gear Golem. Because it's definitely going to be a handy monster to have. I'm also going to have Cyberdark Wave Wolfen as well. Actually, think about Agent Gear Gadgetron Dragon, not so much. Now that I think about it. Agent Gear Soldier. Definitely gonna have him because he would definitely help me out. And I'm also gonna have Ultimate Agent Gear Golem. Now I'm also gonna add Polymerization. I'm gonna put in Polymer because not only that I want to have Polymerization to help me do the fusion summon of the Ultimate Agent Gear Golem, but I also want to add 2 copies of Transformium Polymer. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because Agent Gear was because, as you know, in some of the previous online duels I done in some of these videos, I have done online duels against people who did fusion summoning, and if you remember, I used Transformium Polymer to take control over that monster. So I'm definitely going to have Transformium Polymer for the stack. And as an added bonus, I'm going to add Fusion Sage. This will allow me to add Polymerization from my deck to my hand if I need to use it. Now, there are some curse cards in this game, as you can tell, and I'm going to go for Curse Seal of the Forbidden Spell. And I think I'm going to add 2 copies of this. As you can tell by the card text, it does say when a spell card is activated, discard 1 spell card and negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. And if you do that, your opponent cannot activate spell cards with that name for the rest of the duel. Now, for those of you that might be confused on this, if I was up against an opponent who used something like, who were to use their Polymerization to do a fusion summon, I can send 1 spell card from my hand to the graveyard to not only negate the activation of their Polymerization, but also destroy it. After that, for the duration of the duel, whoever my opponent is, they're not going to activate, no matter how many copies of Polymerization they have, and no matter if, and it doesn't matter if they were to take my Polymerization cards, whoever my opponent is, they're not going to be able to use Polymerization for the duration of the duel. Like, yeah, that sounded confusing. Now I've said it. But basically, what this does is, it will negate. What this does is, not only that it negates, but destroys the opponent's spell card, but also for the duration of the duel, your opponent is not able to activate any copies of that spell card for the duration of the duel. Such as if your opponent were to use Polymerization, you can negate the activation as well as the effect of that spell card and then destroy it. But also, for the duration of the duel, your opponent cannot activate Polymerization no matter how many copies they have of that card. I hope that made sense to anybody. Now I'm also going to add 2 copies of Drowning Mirror Force, because that's definitely going to help me out. Now I'm going to add Beatdown as a skill for this deck. In case you wonder what Beatdown does, this is what it does. Until the end of the turn, increase the attack of all face-up level 5 or higher monsters you control by the number of level 5 or higher monsters you control times 300. And you can only use this skill once per duel. In the next video I'll show you how that works. Now there's something else I want to do for this deck, which is, now even though a number of these cards are not gonna be Agent Gear monsters, I do like to add Gaga Gigo the Wizen, as well as Gaga Samurai to this deck, because I got a feeling those two monsters would definitely help out. Now, another thing you should know is that you can actually change the name of your deck in this game. Now, because most of the cards in this deck are Agent Gear cards, I'm gonna call this deck Agent Gear deck, which makes sense. Most of the monsters are Agent Gear monsters, and I've also got some Agent Gear spell cards. All I have to do now is click on save and change it to this, and change my deck to this one, and bing bang boom, Officer Tetsu Trudge has now got an Agent Gear deck. Now in the next video I'm going to do a practice duel, so that just to test out the Agent Gear deck. Make sure you tune in for that, and until next time, goodbye for now.